Greetings, my name is Jason Marcellus, and one period of music that I will forever be critical of is the late 90s teen pop music. It was a music that was geared towards children and no one else, and so a lot of music was watered down, and frankly, if you were a young adult or an adult, you didn't matter. It was all about getting money from children because their parents gave them that money. And so I think a lot of music was watered down during that time. But there's one thought that would be in the back of my mind about that particular period that I haven't really discussed. And that thought would be this. D'Angelo's album Voodoo came out in 2000 during that period. And to be honest, I think that the teen pop music in a lot of ways just drowned that record out. I mean, it was popular. I mean, it had some success, but you didn't hear about it as much as the artists of the teen pop music. And mind you, I wasn't even thinking about race. I was thinking more about the culture of the music. I mean, because a lot of those artists, they were white artists. But D'Angelo's Voodoo was an album that really didn't get a certain amount of attention. Now, it was still popular. However, it was popular for the wrong reasons. There were two dynamics going on. One, D'Angelo made a music video for the song Untitled, How Does It Feel? And basically, he decided to stand naked while he was filmed. But unfortunately, you had a lot of black females that loved that video. Well, that part is fine, but the unfortunate part was, I bet you a small minority of those people heard his album because everything became about wanting to see him naked, and it overshadowed the music. At the same time, you would have musicians talking about that album, and you wouldn't even hear about that song or the video or any of that. It was all about like the people that were on the album, the songs that were on it, the grooves and the references and so forth. And it was about how great the album was. And I think about that dynamic, and I think, unfortunately, that is something that happens. You do have great pop music, but it doesn't really make mainstream. Unfortunately, it's more decadent aspects of things that make mainstream. So, yeah, but Voodoo was definitely a great album and a great accomplishment. And I remember when I heard that album, I went back and checked out his Brown Sugar album, and that was a great debut album. It was just a great first album to have. Now, it was in 2000, I think it was 14, that I was alerted that D'Angelo did an interview, and he mentioned auditioning for my father. And I immediately, before seeing the clip, I said, this must be Richmond, Virginia. And I went and checked out the clip, and sure enough, he did audition for him in Richmond, Virginia. Now, one thought I had was it would have been interesting had my father been able to teach D'Angelo for a minute, because my father was interested in what a student needed to learn, not teaching jazz or any of that. It was, what is it that a student needs to learn? Years ago, he told me about this blues guitar player that told him, yeah, man, I want to learn how to read music, but I don't want to fool with none of that classical junk. To which my father asked him, well, why do you want to learn how to read music? It was about what was needed. And it would have been great to see what would have happened. Now, D'Angelo still made out fine. He made great music. And it's unfortunate that we didn't get more music from him. And it's unfortunate that those more mainstream things got more attention than his actual music, because he did make great music. And one other thing I wanted to point out was there was a singer, a very prominent singer, they made records and everything. They once was on Twitter asked, why is it that I'm now just hearing D'Angelo's album Voodoo? And this was 10 years after it was released. I think they put a hashtag, blame the parents, but it's kind of involved. I just think that in the late 90s, music was geared towards children, and a lot of parents and adults just didn't really follow pop music anymore. So you would have had to have searched it yourself. But that was something that this singer asked, like, why did they just hear that 10 years later and they didn't hear it when it came out? And I think that's what it was. So it's unfortunate that he didn't make more albums, but D'Angelo was definitely a one-of-a-kind creative soul.